Hello, my name is Timothy Cheek, and today I'll be showing the code behind my capstone prototype. So to start off, this is in Unity using C# scripts. The first C# script is the main menu. In the main menu, we're gonna load the audio clip for when you select a button, when you press a button, and then I have some volume checks for the background music. The background music is inside our main menu object where we have the background music playing and it will loop. And then on GUI, we're just going to write the title of the capstone project, which is Terra Wars. And then we create the two buttons to go into the demo level and to go into credits. And then whenever these two buttons are clicked, it plays the audio clip of just to give recognition that the button was hit. Inside the main menu credit screen, we just load the sound in for the audio clip for selecting the button, pressing the button, and then we write out all the credits information, and then we create another button that, when selected, will make the sound for recognition that the button was selected, which goes back to the main menu. The next script is the win screen script. So when the player wins, we go to the screen, which says the player wins and has the button to go back into the main menu, which also has the recognition sound for when you press the button. Here's the lose screen script, which is the same as the win screen, other than it just says the player is lost and you can go back into the main menu. Now for the main game, the demo level, we have a UI script, which I use for just the overall and for the user interface. So we have our different variables, and then on start, we're going to simulate with touches so that I can test it on my Mac as well as on the tablet. And we just set our variables just to get them all started. And we grab all the enemies that are inside the level just to store them so we don't have to keep searching for them. And same for the player units. Also, we load in the texture for the side menu. On update, we're going to check to see if all the players' units are dead. And if so, we're going to load the blue screen. And then if the player is, all their units are still, if they have units still alive, then we're gonna check for if all the enemy units are dead, and if so, then we load the win screen. And after those two checks are done, we are gonna go find out whose turn it is, and then we check to see if the player has used all their units, and if so, we're gonna switch the turn over to the enemy, the computer's turn, and we're just gonna set all the variables for the player units back to false. And then if it's the enemy's turn, we're just going to check to see if all the enemy units have moved, and we're going to cycle through each one and tell each one to move so they're not all doing it at the same time. And then on our GUI for this, we're going to create just a text at the top saying the info for the info side. We're gonna create this button for so you can switch the camera on and off, which lets you move around the level to see the accelerometer, which I will show in another script. But we just put all the buttons on the UI side. And then if a unit is selected, we're gonna just throw its name up onto the info section, and then here's a check just to say what button's selected, right? So on the info side, whenever you select one of the buttons, it'll tell you what you selected. Or if there's no button selected, it'll just be blank. So now if we select the unit by touching them, we'll have our different buttons will appear. So if there's no unit selected, there's no action buttons. So we'll have our move button, which tells the player to move, and then we have an attack button, which will tell that unit that it's in attack mode, and we'll set defend to false because we're going to attack, and our move, of course, would be false because we're attacking now. And then we'll have a defend button, which tells the unit it's in defend and end that unit's turn. And then on the info section also we'll show the unit's name and how much health it has in the info section. And at the bottom left, beside the camera button, we'll have a main menu button to go back to the main menu from the demo level. And also at the top of the screen we'll say whose turn it is, if it's player's turn or enemy's turn. Then if we go to the next one, which is the move camera, which we attach this to the camera object, main camera object. So when the accelerometer, when that button is pressed, so you can move around the level now. We can this is just catching the accelerometer information, and we're gonna slow it down by 0.75, just so it's not zipping across the level. And then if the button's not pressed, then it just won't do it. Now inside units, the unit C# script, we have different unit states. We have idle, attack, move, and dead. So here we're gonna just create our different variables like our state. We get our box 2D collider, our idle sprites, what index of the sprite we're on. We'll have a float for time for animations, a bool for if this unit's selected, and different bools for what action we're doing. And then a bool for if this unit's dead. And then we'll have a target if we're attacking somebody. And then here's the attributes for the unit. And here's some audio clips. We have the damage audio clip in for when the unit dies. So on start, we're gonna grab the box 2D collider, so we have it. And then we're going to load in our sprites for the player. We're gonna set our state, our name. We're going to grab the grid that we're on. We're using Grid Framework, which is a plugin for Unity, which allows us to have our grid and to snap to the grids and everything. And then we're going to set our attributes. And we're going to set our health to our max health and our energy points to our max energy points. And then we're going to load in our audio clips. And then our update function, we will we're going to check to see if the unit's dead. If its health is below 0 or at 0, or if our bool is not set, we're going to set our bool, set our state to dead, and then we're going to set to our sprite to the dead sprite, and we're going to play the sound for death when the unit dies. And if we're in idle, we're going to grab the delta time, and we're going to see if it's past 0.15, and if so, then we're going to go in and we're going to cycle through to the next frame of that sprite image, and we're going to continually do that. And then when we get to the max for that idle animation, then we're just going to drop back to the first one. And then if we're in attack state, we're going to do the same thing as we did for idle, but but since we're not going to loop it, we're just going to go to a certain point. Once we get to the 11th frame of this sprite, we're going to stop the attack and set it all back to idle. And the attack has 3 frames for attack. On the second frame is when we're going to actually damage the targets that we're attacking. And we're going to just cycle through the animations. And then here it's just if it's not the player's turn, we're just not even going to worry about it. We're just going to return after we do all the animation stuff. But if it is the player's turn, we're going to check to see if the unit is this the unit whose turn it is this one. If it is and it's not dead and it's not attacking, so it would be for the move action. We're gonna grab where the player touched and find that into the grid space. So that's where we're gonna move our unit to. I'm gonna set it to has moved. But if it is this unit's turn and it's an attacking, we're gonna grab the player's touch position and see if it collides with one of the enemies. And if it does, we're gonna set our attack stance. We're gonna set our state to attack, and then set all of our index for our sprites. And so if it's not in moving or attacking, and we have a mouse down, we're gonna check to see if we touch this unit. If we touch this unit, then we're going to select it, and we're gonna mark it as selected. Here's a function for taking damage. We just we get the damage, which would be the attack power, attack variable for the enemy unit. And if we're defending, we're just gonna take a quarter of that damage off automatically for defending, and then we're gonna subtract the defense from it. And then if here's a check just to make sure that if the damage is less than 0, we set it to 0, because we're gonna subtract the health damage from the health, and if it's a negative number, it's actually gonna give it health. And we'll play the damage sound effects. For enemy, a lot of this is the same as it was for the player units here. But we're just going to load the enemy sprite in instead and set all of its information, all of its attributes. And if it's dead, we're going to set its sprite to the correct frame for dead and play the sound. And idling, we're just going to do the same as we did for the player unit. We're just going to loop through the idle frames. And then if it's not the enemy's turn, if it's player's turn, we're just going to automatically end the update. If it is the enemy's turn, and this enemy is it's this enemy's turn to move, since we don't want all the enemies moving at the same time, we're just doing a very basic algorithm to move. We're just gonna call this function called find move. So first we're gonna see if the player is next to the enemy. If the player is not next to the enemy, we're just gonna move. We're gonna do a move function towards the player, and if the enemy is next to the player, then we're gonna attack the player unit that we targeted. Which as of right now, there's only one unit, so we just going for that one unit. And then if say that we do move, we're gonna check to see if we're next to the player unit, and if so, then we're gonna attack. If not, the enemy just ends his turn. For finding move, this is very basic AI for AI pathing right now, which is just finding out which grid space next to him is closer to the target, and then we're gonna return whatever direction that is, and that's how we know which direction to move to. And then we're just gonna move the enemy unit into that direction with this function, move function. And it just snaps. It finds the next grid square once you go to grid's nearest box. And then this is just a function to say, are we next to the target unit? And the tick damage is just the health minus the damage for the enemy as of right now. And we play the damage sound. Now main menu has the background music. And if we go look at credits, also has the background music as of right now. And then if you go here, we have a, if we go to the level, and we look at the level, we have our grid framework right here, which is just a Rex grid, which creates this grid, and then I just place the texture onto the level object, which is our level background texture, and then we render the grids. We're rendering them black, and it's a 9x9 with a spacing of 1. And then if you look here, there's our sprites. So the red would be your enemy, and your white is your player sprite. And that is it for the code side of my prototype. Thank you.